For years, governments and nonprofits have been tracking different numbers to understand the impact of COVID, which often goes hand in hand with inflation, housing market, cost of gas and energy. You already know all of this. It's more and more expensive to just live, and even so, to the point where it's out of reach for some workers. They can't make ends meet. Well, United Way of Treasure Valley calls this ALICE. It's an acronym that means you make too much money to qualify for most assistance programs, but not enough money to really make ends meet on your own. So you're in that gap population. Well, this year, United Way released their first ALICE report since the COVID pandemic. And statewide, we've learned a higher percentage of people are on tighter budgets, and they're living in that gap. Here's our Andrew Bartline.
Underneath the perks of living in Idaho settles an unsettling problem.
How much it costs for just the basics of a household budget.
A balancing act.
Do you guys think you could live off $2,075 a month?
Seemingly with a thumb on the scale.
Not in any feasible way.
All right, well, if you want to try, let us know. We'll see how a budget might seem to work out.
Better described as meager than generous.
Yeah.
Andrew Shumich gave us a lesson.
It's kind of small if you're not just a single person and need something more than just the basics, I think.
Supposedly, that's all it's for.
Well, I guess I'd have to add it all up, I guess.
So start with rent.
I guess I pay about $1,000 for a one bedroom.
Okay, so that's half.
Which I think is, I don't know, maybe kind of about median.
Where?
North End, 10th Street. That's probably about as good as you're gonna find.
Which sets up his budget for about as cheap as we could find. Utilities.
I probably average around $150.
Food.
Yeah, I eat out way too much. Probably close to $400.
And now for the car bill.
Ideally, get as low as possible, which is what I do. I sometimes have to change the tires and maybe
$20?
do some maintenance on it. Pretty much pay nothing. I don't know what you'd split a bike cost up into.
Do you own a car?
No, kind of a conscious choice of mine, and it's worked out pretty well.
Through lifestyle and a little luck,
I've kind of kept with it.
it's possible.
So what's this budget supposed to come out to be? Because the ALICE report says people are living on that line. Well, they say that your rent is $454 a month. Not sure where in the Treasure Valley you're supposed to find that. Utilities, $154. They say food comes out to $470, and your transportation is $328 a month. After all that, you're left with $669. That can help you with things like your phone bill, but the bottom line is they say that number just isn't working for people.
The numbers.
Every person across our region.
Compiled and reported.
Correct.
By Megan Ramali's team.
The experience of financial hardship is still significant across the Treasure Valley.
Still, meaning it never left.
We're at 43% of residents across the Treasure Valley are experiencing ALICE. And ALICE is an acronym that stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained Employed.
More than 4 in 10 living on that line. But that data lags behind years.
Reflective as of 2021.
Meaning the trends may be worse than we know.
Yeah, it just barely hits.
Already on the border of sustainability.
Emergencies happen all the time.
And it'll be years till we find out.
Maybe you're sharing rent with someone and someone has to move out of the house and you have to cover the rest of the rent, and that doubles, for a few months, and then all your savings is gone. All sorts of things can happen.
To be clear, the budget we worked through was for a single adult. That ALICE threshold is a scale that increases as a family would grow. United Way of Treasure Valley releases this ALICE report every 3 years. So it would be that many years until we know the gravity of the situation today for the people of Idaho. United Way warns the consequences of people living in this ALICE gap, Joe. Yeah. That could be taking on debt for basic needs. For kids, it looks like poor performance in school, lower mental health. That's become something that's increasingly in headlines, things people talk about. So yeah, there's very real impacts of this, and they see that trend growing. They think it's worse than what this report says, again, because that data is 2 years old.
And I think the way you highlighted it too, talking with that young man who's a single adult, he might have, a whole list of expenses, and we saw that illustrated, but he doesn't have kids, as far as I'm aware. He doesn't have kids, he doesn't have a family.
He's paid off his student loans, so he's good. Like that's a really good example of someone who is lucky, right? He said, I understand I'm the exception, not exactly the rule. That ALICE budget they have broken down, it's like less than $500 for rent. Show me where that's at in the Treasure Valley. I'm jumping on it right now. So the numbers certainly have changed in 2 years.
Well, I was just playing on a notepad when I was reading through your story earlier in the newsroom, and I started to do it myself of, okay, here's what I spend on all my things. And you could see that, money, it runs out very quickly if you don't have any other sources of income or you're not working or living with somebody else. So these types of scores, I think, are going to be really interesting to see in the next few years, because we talk about COVID and the impacts of COVID. We won't know what that is for years, as you highlighted.
Yeah, we know where it's trending. We'll see where it's at soon.
Yeah. Andrew Bartline will follow the Alice reports. Thank you.